way cooler than I am. He's got a way cooler hat than I do. So if you're on Instagram, you're only going to be able to see me. So make sure you head over. It's in the title, youtube.com/GOGOTIX. And we're going to get started here. All right. Welcome everybody to Gogotalx, brought to you by GOGOTIX. I am your host, Malachi Johns. Today we are joined by the one and only Mr. Fancy himself, Darryll Brooks. How are you, sir?
I'm all right. I'm not fancy. I'm just playing.
No, you went and got the hat and you got the mirror stuff behind you. You're fancy, man.
I'm not fancy. DC. I don't know if you see that, but it says it's a logo for We Are One.
Oh, okay. There you go.
That's old school.
There you go. Yeah, no. We remember. Yeah, madness. We are one. Shooters. All that. All days. Yep. I'm trying to represent the city a little bit today too. So, well, I'm not from the city. Let's get that out of the way. I'm from Maryland, so we can just dispense with all the Maryland Bama jokes at the beginning, and we'll get that out of the way. So thanks for joining us today. I know you're a very busy and important man with lots of important things to do. So I appreciate you taking some time for me today.
I try to use them wisely.
Indeed. So why don't you give everybody sort of your story on how you got into the music industry and, all of that, and take as much time as you like. And I'll probably stop you and ask for more detail along the way.
The question I would ask you is, like, the audience might not want to hear all my history because I started out as a school teacher, born and raised in DC. Mm-hmm. Got involved with advertising when I quit my teaching job. And when you're advertising, you advertise everything from shoe stores, clothing stores, crab house. I used to do cabarets and go-go's.
Well, let me just explain something real quick. So the audience does want to, the purpose of this show is to try to connect the dots between the way that the go-go industry works today,
okay,
and how the greater music industry works, and how we get go-go to a broader audience. You know what I mean? So it is important to know that you worked in advertising because that speaks to experience that you have had. And how to get the word out to people. And that's important information that people need to know if they're trying to be successful in their music career and just in making go-go popular, etc. So anyway, just so you're aware, so you know what the gist is and what the agenda is.
So I think that this is take up where I left off. So I was very familiar with the music, and being born and raised in DC, I used to go to a lot of the clubs, etc. back in the day, and started at 11 o'clock. To 3 or 4 in the morning. Then they started doing, breakfast shows and stay up till 7 o'clock in the morning. Don't ask me how we did it, but
girls. You were doing these, or you just were going to these?
I was hanging out. I was a whippersnapper. A block boy, as we call them in DC. Mm-hmm. Hang out, and I think gradually from doing shows, not doing shows, but advertising and seeing shows and being a part of it and seeing it from the side, it became interesting. I thought I could do it. My first show was done at a place called Parkway Gardens, Kenilworth Avenue.
Okay.
Before you get to the Maryland line, and it was a small club, and I was involved with a band called Black Heat. Mm-hmm. I had like 2000 AD and about 3 other groups that were on the show, mm-hmm. and I had just come back from Los Angeles, and I had gone to the Whiskey a Go-Go. Mm-hmm. So when I went to this club, they had movies on the ceiling, on the walls, and people dancing. So I said, I'm going to emulate that mm-hmm. as my show. And I called my company Lecture Ladyland, Experience, Corny Flyer, and all these bands. I was giving away records because Black Heat just put out a record. And I had movies. I had space movies, on the wall. And it sold out, And I was blown away. I went in there with my wife, my first wife, and my brother-in-law and my brother, and we came home with a whole bunch of money. and we thought we were.
So I have a question.
What's
I
that?
have a question real quick about that because I'm just getting a little echo. I had Charles Stevenson on last week, and he was talking about, you know, when he first started with EU and Black Heat and all these other bands were going at the time, and that his contention, and I want to see if you agree, was that Black Heat was not a go-go band, but at that time the events were called go-go's, and so that's where some of the because there's a lot of contention about whether Chuck really was the inventor of I mean, I shouldn't say a lot. There are a few people that say that Chuck really didn't invent go-go music because people were going to go-go's prior to him inventing this beat.
But I think that for us purists, the whole philosophy of where a band's head is when it comes to that is that if you can keep the audience on the floor from one song to another, and generally was done with bridges or a conga beat and some kind of intermission, some kind of rhythm, dance rhythm that would keep you on the floor, that was considered the perfect combination for a go-go. Now, Black Heat was a great cover band, but at the same time, they had a couple of records because they had a label deal with Atlantic Records. When I was management at the time, we played against the Commodores, Kool in the Gang, and DC, because of the way we play and with that heavy percussion that's always in our music, we could always blow everybody out the park. Because nobody can contend with them drums.
Indeed.
Nobody. I don't care who you got. You can have one hit record, that's good. But let me get one go-go band, give me 2 records back to back, and let that rhythm section take over. I have the audience for life. They'll never forget it. It goes back to
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
I said it goes back to their primal instinct. Them drums speak to you.
For sure, 100%. So my question to you is, you mentioned that Black Heat was a cover band, but they also had to deal with Atlantic Records. That's not something that you see happening very often these days. Well, how was that?
Well, there was a guy named Phil Gilbo who was a horn player for Ray Charles' band who was signed to Atlantic. Okay. So he would use Black Heat as his band when he wasn't on tour with Ray Charles. So these guys knew how to play that kind of music.
Right.
Chip Esco, Raymond Green, Ray Thomas. Those guys were incredible. You know, there was a lot of great musicians during that time period.
Right.
Some played with other bands as time went on, but that's who they were. And DC was very popular with cabarets and cookouts and barbecues in the summertime. So there'll be a lot of business for anybody who can play good music, obviously familiar music, as well as keep people dancing and partying. Chuck was an excellent person doing that because he was so pristine and so precise in emulating music that other groups had got, like George Benson and I mean, you name him, he was that good. So you thought you would listen to the record until you turned around and saw that it was Chuck because the music was so tight. Well, the other groups that were on the come up would try to emulate that to the same extent. So they did what they did, and they kept working. That's one of the reasons a lot of groups in DC, as they were coming up, really didn't have to go anywhere because people are always in demand. It's better to play at home and then be able to go back and play with your kids when you wake up in the morning than ride, 500 miles, 1,000 miles back and forth to pick up a couple of dollars.
So that's sort of the crux of the dilemma that we have as go-go musicians, because I feel like almost all of the musicians that I've talked to, young and old alike, that come from go-go, they don't say that. I think they do that, but they say that they want to be Beyonce. But really, it's just what you just said. It's I'd rather just be at home and go home at night, but they won't ever say that out of their mouth. So my question to you is, because it sounds like that's been going on for a very long time. It's not a new phenomenon.
You got to remember this, Malachi. When these groups started going outside of town, North Carolina, Atlanta, South Carolina, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, they would do a one-nighter. No one really wanted that heat coming on after them. So they weren't getting booked, 5 or 6 dates in a row. And they didn't have any record labels who also pushed them down the street to sell product 5 or 6, 10 days in a row.
Mm-hmm.
And to be honest, the bands I told you we played with Commodores, Cool in the Gang. Them brothers didn't want that heat.
Right.
Let them brothers go. You know,
Right.
watch this. Even to today, when I do my festivals, or when I used to do my festivals before this pandemic came,
Yeah.
those acts didn't want to. They didn't want those go-go bands to play before them. That means they had to work.
Yep.
You know how hard it is to get up off the ground after somebody just knocked the stage off the platform?
Oh yeah.
It's hard. I've seen a lot of them step in and say, "Oh hell no! Do we have to go on now?" Yep. You want to be the headliner? Go ahead. I told you we'd let them go first. They'll be glad to go after you. But no, you want to show everybody who you are. You a big band from out of town. We're going to kick your ass.
I remember I saw when I first moved back to LA in 2015, I was at Target and I happened to be in front of the line with right in front of Raphael Sadiq. And we started talking about Go-Go. And he said, man, I told Chuck Brown I will never play after him again, ever again. It was probably one of your shows.
Country ass whipping. His manager at the time was called Damien. I forgot Damien Smith. I said, hey, you better let Chuck come after you. He said, no, man, we're bigger than him. I said, D, please. It's gonna be hard to follow that. No, we got it. Okay. Let me tell you something. Raphael had tears in his eyes and his fingers were bleeding because it's hard to catch that up. It's hard to bring that attention back. I've seen Questlove say, oh hell no.
Yep.
Oh hell, that's right, nigga. You gotta excuse me. Oh, you gotta work.
You
gotta work.
Yeah. Okay, so we jumped ahead a little bit. So you threw your first show with Black Heat, and then you managed it. You mentioned that you started managing them later. Did that come like right after the first night, or
no? See, in my life, after I got out of the advertising business, I got involved with a nonprofit arts organization called Compare to What Incorporated. And we were basically doing arts programs connected with education in the community. We had a couple of grants that came from the National Endowment, the DC Commission on the Arts, Mayor's Office of Youth Opportunity, Cummins Engine Foundation, McDonald's. Different people gave us money, and we set up these programs. And we did it. The kind of programs we did were related to arts with education. It could have been music with education. Then we had this program in Anacostia Park in the summertime for about 8 or 9 weeks. It was called the Summer Hut Program. So at the Summer Hut, you can go theater, you can go plays, you can go macrame, you can do leather craft, all these things. Because we got teachers out of the art department in public schools, teachers out of the music department, and we were teaching that stuff on the grounds with workshops. At night, we did evening concerts. And basically, we had the guys who were working during the day find out how to set up equipment, find out how to deal with lights, find out how to, put diesel fuel in a generator. They had hands-on involvement in the show. And we did that for like going on 4 or 5 years until the government shut down in 76. So when that shut down, no, let me back up. So while we were doing it, we had to match our grants with these different foundations. So we would do a show. We did a show at the DC Coliseum. That was funny. The first, Mr. Henderson gave us a Coliseum for little or no rent. And the floor was, Darryll and Carol, what you need to do is, you had to put the floor down over top of the ice because it's an ice rink. You have to build a stage. And if you put the floor down, I'll give you the show for this. We got in there like at 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning, had to put a basketball floor over top of this. We had sold the tickets through the high school banks, which they only sold maybe about 400 or 500 tickets out of all the schools we put them in.
Oh, wow.
We had all these bands coming and built a stage. Everybody's hands were hurting because we didn't know what the hell we were doing. It was harder because we weren't stage hands or anything like that.
Right.
And at 5:15, maybe 100 people in the building. We said, oh, man. At 6:45, every time a bus stop on 8th Street, we see a few people walking down the street. By 8 o'clock, the place was packed to the rafters. Wow. Every time the bus came from either northwest or southeast, they were dropping them on 8th Street. And you saw these lines of people heading to the show. Malachi, it was crazy. The box office, we were taking so much money at the box office. They would just pass out the tickets and put the money on the floor because nobody could stack it, rack it. And they just kept, every time the money would come in the door, give them change, put the cash. People had money down to the ankles and knees. It was that stupid. So that was our first real big success. The next one we did was at the DC Armory. It was called the Capitol Boogie Showdown.
Mm-hmm.
That's might have been a year or so later. WMAL, Channel 7 in DC, filmed it. And we had a contest. We worked with WL. WL at the time was like an AM station. And that was real big. Bobby Bennett came out. Mr. C came out. Blah, 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 blah. We had girls and boys dancing. And we gave a trophy to the best dancer. And we had some groups play there. That next year, we get a call from Pat Darr, who was running the Capitol Center at the time, the booking major at the Capitol Center. He said, Carol and Darryll, y'all been successful here. You've been successful there. Would you like to come to do one of the shows at our building? I said, man, your building's big. You know, at that time, the Capitol Center was only like 22,000 people. Mm-hmm. And Jack Boyle and Bill Washington had exclusive on it. So we said, that's like too big. And, you know, we're small. He said, well, why don't you come on in? And what I'll do, I'll set you up. And maybe Bill Washington can help you, show you some of the ropes. And we knew Bill very well.
Well, you're going too fast, Darryll. You're going too fast. We gotta get. You already got Carol in the Carolyn. We got to get to how you and Carol started working together. So I'm still trying to figure out how you started managing Black Heat and how that went, and then what happened right after that.
Hold on for a minute. I might need to go get my battery charged.
Oh, okay.
We'll sleep unless you plug it up.
Oh, okay.
Can you stay there till I get the plug?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. I can run another little spot while you got to do that.
Spot where I go get the plug.
All right. Sounds good.
Girls on me, on the dance floor, all eyes on me, party like a rock star. You can find me in VIP, all eyes on me, yeah, where the girls are. This is how your night should be.
All right, everybody. So while we're waiting for Darryll to go to get his charger real quick, I just want to ask everybody, please, down below, click subscribe. If you're on YouTube, click subscribe and click that little bell icon. When you click that little bell icon, that will alert you when the next episodes are coming up. Also, you can go to gogotix.co and sign up for the email list, and we'll send you out an email every Monday to let you know who's coming up that week. And then, you know, when Outside opens back up again, you'll also email of all the upcoming shows as well. Mr. Brooks here is a faithful member of our email list, and so we appreciate that. So, you know, make sure you go sign up for that, gogotix.co. Just sign up for the email list. So, okay. All right. So you charged up there, sir?
It's charging.
All right, there we go. Sounds good. Okay, so you throw your first show with Black Heat. You're managing Black. How did you go from throwing the show with them to managing them?
They asked me.
They just at that first show, or later on down the road?
They knew what I was doing in the community. I put them on 2 shows, and I booked them on the show. And they said, "Hey, we want you to be our manager." I said, "I never managed a group." So I walked away.
What happens?
Then Esco Chroma came to me and said, this is the last offer I'm going to give you. We got a record deal. We got shows. You can make money. Be my manager.
Mm-hmm. And so how long did that last, and how did it end?
It lasted a while, maybe about 2 or 3, 2 records. The end of one record and beginning of a new record. But what happened, Phil Gilbo, who had a relationship with Atlantic Record, took their name because they were using the name Black Heat. And Phil Gilbo told them that the name Black Heat is not yours. They can't use that name. So it ended up being called AKA something. And their whole thing broke down because they couldn't get booked. And they had to build a whole new name. And the guys got real frustrated.
Yeah, because you got to start over. Yep.
That was not good for guys who got babies.
Right. Gotcha. Okay. So we went a little past that. And in there you mentioned Carol. Carol is obviously your longtime partner. So how did you link up with Carol? And
when I was working with the nonprofit arts organization.
Okay.
My graphic artist and a guy named Tony Taylor, who at that time used to run and manage the Bohemian Caverns on 11th or 10th and 11th and U Street.
Yep.
And we were doing this program. We're going to call it Roberta Flack Day. because they were trying to honor Roberta Flack. She was a professor up at Howard University, and Les McCann was going to try to get had gotten her a record deal. So basically trying to launch her career as being a hometown girl makes good sort of thing. And then
I never knew she was a professor at Howard. That's interesting.
Yeah, she was at Howard University. So then it turned around that Carol got involved, and she changed the narrative. Instead of saying Roberta Flack Day, she said, let's do a Humankind Day. We can do one every year. And our partnership began after she wrote some proposals to the National Endowment and to the DC Commission on Arts as a lead to get involved with more programs, some funding, because after the riots, the government had all this money. They were trying to do youth programs. And she was a good writer. So we ended up hooking up after that time period, and that ended up lasting for a long time.
Right. Okay, so you did a couple of successful shows. The guy's asking you to do the Capitol Center. And at this point, you're doing what? Are you still managing any artists, or are you just doing?
I got in and out of that. After Black Heat went away, a couple people asked me to do them favors, but I would do a favor because I was like, that wasn't really my interest. My interest was education. My interest was, making money. Doing advertising stuff in DC, and to go on the road was cute, but it also takes you away for 2 or 3 days. Day going, a day coming back, and that was all right, but not what I planned on doing with my life at that time.
So everybody pay attention to that. Darryll Brooks said he liked managing artists, but his objective was to make money. So that's a lesson right there for you, that managing artists is a license to go broke. But however, they also say that being a promoter is a license to go broke. And
that's like double barrel. That's like shooting that's doing Russian roulette with 5 bullets in the chamber. You know what I mean? But I think that just to expand on the management side, between Carol and I, we've managed or been co-managing of a lot of major artists: Salt and Pepper, right. Kwame, Dana Dane, 3 Mo Tenors, Maya.
No, we're gonna get to all that. I want to get to all that, but that was after the Capitol Center show, right?
That was way after.
Gotcha. Okay, so all right, so let's go with the Capitol Center. So what happened with that show? Was that Gogo Live, or was that a different show? Okay.
Let me tell you what, we had a relationship with Radio WL at the time.
Yeah.
They were saying, no, she didn't own it then. That's sounding
before that.
She hadn't gotten that station yet.
Gotcha.
And it was still on Wisconsin Avenue.
Okay.
And Bobby Bennett and Mr. C and all of them were still, Nighthawk and those guys were still program direct, music direct, etc.
Gotcha.
And they said, what groups do we use? So by us being in Anacostia all the time, we wanted to find out the groups that they like.
Right.
So they said we like Average White Band, Slave, and T-Connection.
Okay.
Those are the 3 acts. People laughed at us. What are they doing? They're going to the Capitol Center with that. Ladies and gentlemen, and Malachi. That's before they put a limit to 18,000 people. We sold 22,000 seats.
Who was the headliner on that show?
Average White Band.
Average White Band.
They were playing "Pick Up the Pieces."
Wow.
Them boy, Malachi, you a musician?
Yep.
Hamish, or what is his name? Hamish got on stage and did one of those Al Green style. He kicked it off, and then people screamed. You know what I mean? They went nuts. Them boys killed him. Boys crush.
So this brings me to a good point. So okay, so you've done some go-go shows. Right. You're going into the Capitol Center, the biggest venue in the city at that point. Yep. And still to this day, I guess, isn't it?
They put it down. They built a Capital One Arena now. Right.
Yeah. So
they put a whole building down out there in Largo, Maryland.
Yeah, I guess Capitol Center isn't even there anymore. But so why did you decide? And this is pointing to another point that I want to make. Why did you decide not to put a go-go band on that card?
That wasn't happening then. You know what I mean? That wasn't. I'm just trying to raise funds for school. Those
Right.
guys play every week. I wanted something that somebody want to see that they don't see every week.
Right. Well, no, and that's the point that I'm trying to make, because there's a lot of people that get upset when they feel like go-go is being slighted because they're not put on these specific shows. And I'm trying to get to the point that not anytime you're not giving an opportunity does not mean somebody's smacking you in the face. It just means that it doesn't fit in with what their agenda for what their particular thing they're doing is. So
there's a lot of other criteria that goes along with that.
Right. Exactly.
My crew, Carol and I, Darryll, all the time, if there's an opportunity to put on a local group on one of our shows,
Yep.
Bill Scott, the Roots, Salt and Pepper, Kid and Play, I don't care what it's been, Heavy D, LL Cool J, we always kept a local band on our show because that represents us. And why wouldn't I give them opportunity to be in front of 20, 30, 20,000 people, 18,000 people, 15,000 people? Why wouldn't I? That makes sense to me. And we've been about that for years. Because those are the same people who embraced us when we were doing stuff in the park for free. Those are the same people who said when we did stuff on the Miami grounds and we needed the band for free, they did that. Chuck Brown was a part of every one of my spirit festivals in the beginning until he played. He was also at Human Kindness Day. Black He played Human Kindness Day. A lot of different people locally played, and then we had other guys who came in, but a lot of those other groups that came in were donated to us by record labels because number one, they knew we could draw the audience and they wanted the exposure.
Right. So how many years did Human Kindness Day go on? And other than Roberta Flack, what were some other acts that played
First year, 72 was Roberta Flack. 73 was Dick Gregory. 74 was Muhammad Ali and Nina Simone. 75 was CB Wonder.
Okay. And so it stopped at 75.
Yeah, that's when everything stopped. The feds basically pulled the plug. And the funding for all arts programs out of the National Endowment were pulled. All their money will start focusing on the security for the bicentennial. They didn't need to pacify black folks anymore. Y'all good. Y'all ain't got it by now.
Which is when I was born, the 76th bicentennial year. Yep. So what's that?
I said that was the end of that. They didn't do any more funding. From that point on, after 76, we went from nonprofit, and that's when we started Tiger Flower. We started doing hardcore concerts to keep feeding our crew and also enjoying what we had developed in the marketplace, as well as we didn't have to go through Bill Washington or Jack Boyle to rent the venue. So when Bill Washington and Jack Boyle was suing DJ Productions, which was a whole bunch of DJs that were at OL, got in Mel Edwards, Gregory Hines, several of those guys. They were bringing in acts, and Bill and them says unfair practice, and basically took them to the FCC to try to bust them. They said to us, "Hey, Darryll, we can help y'all get these acts, and later for them other folks."
So how do you justify unfair practice? It's competition. That's
this was Bill Washington and Jack Boyle's position.
Right.
You got a DJ who's playing the music, who's booking the act, and having them play live concerts.
Yep.
That's a conflict because Bill Washington has to buy the advertising.
I got you.
You guys can say stuff on the radio back in the day.
Sure.
12 commercials just by giving us a gesture or playing the record twice, whatever the conflict was in their mind.
Gotcha. I can sort of see that. But gotcha. Okay. All right. So Wildflower and I'm sorry, Tiger Flower. I'm sorry. So Tiger Flower. And how long did that last?
Well, we ended up doing a show in 76 and 77 with George Clinton, the second landing of the mothership.
Okay.
And George had a lot of tax problems. And he had a lot of this business problems. And he really didn't have an office. So when we were contracting to do the work and doing shows with him, because after that first show we did with him, Carol and I, and also his manager at the time, a guy named Ronnie Strasner, he said, "Do y'all want to do some more shows?" And we said, "We're not promoters. We're just local, do." He said, "I'll tell you what. I'll give you my shows. Don't worry about the money. We'll split the money at the end of the night. I just want you to do my shows from now on. We laughed. Said, okay, we'll do it. We ended up doing 13 markets from Richmond, Virginia, all the way down to Hollywood, Florida. Sold out every one.
What do you think? What do you think it was about how you handled yourself and how you did the show that made him want you?
Good promotion. We were naive not to ask the dumb questions that other people probably asked them about.
Mm-hmm.
We weren't trying to steal nothing or take nothing because we were straight ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever the rules were, we played by the rules.
Mm-hmm.
And I was a marketing nuthead. You know what I mean? I knew how to do that.
Right.
And I had crews to help me. My stuff. If you heard my spots on the radio, you say, "Oh, them brothers is coming." You know what I mean? Right. And I had built relationships because of my relationship with George and the DJs in DC. So all the program directors, music directors from DC all the way to Florida, I was introduced. Somebody said, "Hey man, Brooks and them are coming through. Watch out for my man. My homeboy coming. Watch out for him." As soon as I get there, I'm open arms. I'm going down to North Carolina. Guys will give me biscuits and gravy. You know what I mean? Go down to the South, I'm getting peaches. You know what I mean? Go further down south, say, give me a little weed. You know what I mean? Things were wide open for me.
Right.
And, it's not that I was using that, but it was comfortable to have that in my arsenal because we still had to build relationships with the union. We still had to build relationships with the building. And we were good at that because we had been through we were doing arenas before we started doing theaters. You know what I mean? So we were used to handling big equipment and moving and dealing with big crowds. So we were pretty astute in that.
So you gained that sort of logistical knowledge just from being hands-on and putting the floor together and just having to do everything yourself. The reason I'm sort of harping on this is because, the idea of this show is to give some knowledge to people that are trying to do more than just be local artists and so one thing I touch on a lot with a lot of the artists is exactly what you just talked, or a lot of the viewers is just what you just talked about, is the importance of relationships, because I think people look at relationships as a negative thing, and he only got on because he knew such and such and such and such. But that's life. Like everything in life and everything in business is based on relationships, and so there seems to be a real disconnect, I feel, at least from my generation of the go-go scene, of fuck a relationship, I'm talented, you should just pay me for showing up and playing. And I feel like that has a lot to do with why go-go hasn't gotten much further outside of the DMV, because people don't know how to build those relationships. So I just wanted to point out that was obviously a key to your success, is building the relationships so that your name preceded you, and also doing the work so that, because it's not just about having relationships, it's about having relationships and also being able to execute. So if you're able to execute,
word means more than money.
Right. Absolutely. 100%. Yeah.
I've done more with my word than I could ever buy with money.
100%. And so that's an important lesson that I think everybody needs to pay attention to. So, okay. So you got your first touring promotion experience with George Clinton, doing 13 markets from Richmond to Miami, or somewhere in Florida? Hollywood, Florida. Gotcha. Okay. And then what happened after that?
I got talked into doing Millie Jackson and Johnny Guitar Watson.
Oh, wow.
That was an experience. That was our first theater experience.
Okay. So for everybody that doesn't know, arenas are really big. Theaters are slightly smaller.
Yeah, they're 2,000, 3,000, 1,200, 1,800 seaters.
Right.
And they were meticulous. And we'd already done George several times across country. So we ended up doing this one show. And that's the first time I really felt how to lose money. But also it was interesting dealing with Johnny Guitar Watson, because I'm so used to dealing with hardcore self-contained bands versus a blues R&B singer, and the thing.
Was he hiring a new band in every city, or?
No, he was just Johnny Guitar Watson. He's a real mother for you, okay?
Yeah. And
I'll leave it at that. God bless his soul. But that taught me a lesson that I never want to do that again.
Gotcha.
Then, we built another tour because it's real funny. On the Parliament tour, the second Parliament tour, we had Parliament, Barcades, and Cameo as opening act. because Parliament and Cameo were all on Casablanca at the time, record label.
Neil Bogart.
Yeah, so we figured that we would do a tour that would break as a headliner Barcades. So we built this tour called the Shower of Stars, and we put Barcades, Cameo, Switch, Stacey Ladder. So we put a potpourri of acts together, and then took that across country where we had been before. Now, in the interim, just to give you an idea, because of George's relationship and the agents that we were dealing with, there were groups like Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five, Curtis Blow, Sugar Hill Gang. They ended up being opening acts for us because they had hot street records.
Right.
And to us, it was hilarious because, you know, him singing The Breaks was the hottest record. So we always get airplay, commercials being our favor. It gave us a hot spot. Same thing with Grandmaster Flash and Furious Five. And we ended up taking them across country. They had never been cross country before.
Right.
You know, so that also gave us a relationship with those guys. So when it came time to go to DC, which they had never played like that, we said, okay, we'll do one called Go-Go Meets Rap. Because DC radio, they were trying to break Go-Go because the record labels was pushing it down their throat. But they weren't getting the love on the street. So Go-Go groups had the streets on lock. So I'm saying, okay, let's have a battle. Didn't use the word battle, but I just said Go-Go meets rap. Malachi, bam, they were selling out like crazy.
So hold on, I'm gonna stop you for 1 second. So, a quick question about these tours that you were doing. So, are you guys? So, obviously, you're new in the national touring world, I guess. Are you? Circuit. Yeah, I couldn't think of the word. Are you guys routing these tours, or are you working with the artist agent to route them, or are you just trying to find markets? Research to know which markets are going to work.
After a while, we were routing them ourselves because we had been doing it back to back to back.
Right.
And George
would know which markets would work for which artists. You're just looking at radio airplay and record sales, or how?
We have a relationship with DJs and program directors and record labels.
Gotcha.
Back then, record labels would come in and give you some records, give you some merch material. If they had a new act, they would give you tons of posters and, you know, can you have your street team put these out? You know, I mean, we were like, you know, think about it. We were like a what do you call it? A walking kiosk for information of what was coming next. And I could get on the phone sitting in DC and say, make 3 phone calls and link up program directors all the way down through the South. I'm coming down so-and-so. The guy said, well, bring me some weed. You can't do that. Coming down so-and-so, bring me some diapers. I need some diaper money. No, okay, I know what that means. different kinds of things. And my stuff would be hot by the time I get there.
Right.
For the days, my friend.
Gotcha. Well, no, I just want to give people an idea of how things work together, because it's, you know, obviously I work in a live business. You know, you've been doing it for, you know, however much longer than I have, much longer. And some people don't have that experience though. So I just want to make sure people know how things work and how everything is sort of intertwined with each other. And, you know, that's basically what I was getting at. So, okay. All right. So at this point, the hip hop is starting to break. Go-Go is hot in the streets, and you're doing rap versus Go-Go, or Go-Go versus rap. And where are you holding these shows?
Capital Center.
Oh, wow. Really?
Only in DC. I didn't go no further than that. And to be honest, one day I was playing with Chuck and them because I've been playing New York so much. I said, listen, and a friend of ours from DC named Charles Warfield, who was running inner city broadcasting up in New York along with WBLS. I told Charles, let's do a Go-Go show on the Apollo. Let's sell that mug out. And he and I bust out laughing and said, okay. He said, Darryll, what I do, you bring me that Go-Go acts, and I'm going to put Biz Markie on. Because Biz Markie, at that time, Nobody Beats the Biz was hot in hell in New York. So I came up there with Rare Essence, Chuck Brown, and it might have been Sugar Bear. I think it was Sugar Bear, EU. We sold out 2 shows in the Apollo. We talk smack all the way back home. We ripped Apollo's ass.
So it was only though. So it was just them and Biz Markie and
Biz
and Biz was performing, not DJing, right?
No, performing. You know.
Yeah, because he had the records at the time. Gotcha. Okay. I got you. So you sold out 2 nights at the Apollo. What's the cap at the Apollo?
I don't know. They don't have like 1,200 people. Like
No, that's still impressive. 2,400 tickets sold for 3 go-go bands in New York. That's big.
Back then, they had not been there.
Right.
Guys from New York wanted to find out why these brothers who were coming back home to New York said these guys were kicking their ass. They wanted to see it.
Right.
They saw it. They said, "Oh snap!"
All right. So then, what happens next? How do you get into managing artists? Managing, these other artists? Because I assume we're getting into that part.
I think that we had played Salt and Pepper so much, and we had a relationship with Herbie Lovebug, good brother. Mm-hmm. And I saw them at an in-store at Douglas Records on F Street. Mm-hmm. And I came there because I was looking for a new talent to play at the Capitol Center. So I watched them do the in-store, and they were little scruffy girls and other stuff. And because hip hop at that time had oversized earrings and leather sneakers, whatever they had. And
right.
DC weren't dressing like that.
Right.
Girls in DC had their hair done.
Right.
Their feet done. They were doing that back in the day. It was always tight. And these girls had that vibe. So I'm saying, okay, but they had a kick-ass record. My mic sounds nice, check.
Right. Which was a good record.
We said, okay, we're gonna put them on the show. So we did several shows with Herbie. Then we toured them. Mm-hmm. And we kind of changed the direction of how they toured. So Herbie one day said, "Hey man, you guys do production and do concerts. I produce records. I got a company. Let's jointly get together. And I got a bunch of acts, and you can help me produce them, blah, 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 and you can co-manage." So we did a co-management deal with them. I ended up moving to New York, stayed in Herbie's house for maybe about a month and a half. Then Carol came up and stayed up there for about a month. We went through all his contracts, we went through a lot of his paperwork, and said, okay, we'll do it. And the stuff we uncovered was unreal. For an example, I had found this deal with Coca-Cola for Kid and Play. And I had faxed it to him. Back then we had fax machines. I had faxed the contract, the proposal from Darryll Agency to Herbie. I said, Herbie, if I get this deal, just give me 10% of the deal. It's a good deal and be good exposure for your group. Okay, Darryll, I'll do that. When the fax would come to Herbie's office, somebody would take him off the room and put him in a box. So about a week or two later, people from Darryll said, "Darryll, we haven't heard from the automakers yet, though. What's going on?" I said, "The guy said everything was good. I'll call him again." I said, "Herbie, did you see the paper?" "No, I haven't seen it." I said, "I faxed it up there. Let me fax it to you again." I faxed it again. A week went by. Darryll, we still haven't heard. It's time for us to do this. So I ended up going to New York. Remember that box I told you about?
Yep.
There was a box probably comes up to your knees of papers. I went through that box and saw my faxes still in that box. I said, Herbie, sign this so we can get this $25,000. Mm-hmm. And it went out the door. And then Kid and Play ended up doing the commercials 2 years in a row. And they ended up playing the commercial during the NBA All-Star Weekend. It was a big commercial for Sprite. Mm-hmm. It was that kind of operation. So from that point on, those other characters in the office went out. We came in, and it was golden. I think Carl went through several of his record contracts, and record labels were spanking them like brand new babies. And we ended up generating a whole lot of money for them from just stuff that he wasn't getting. And then we went on tour. We cut a deal and had a good relationship at that time with ICM, a guy named Mark Siegel. And we structured a tour for them to do. And then we connected with a tour promoter. And I made Clarence Jones, which is out of Huntsville, Alabama, and Jeff Sharp, who is AEG, as Jeff Sharp is his tour promoter, and put those two together. We went across country. And guess who was our opening act?
Who's that?
R. Kelly.
Oh, really? Hey, Darryll, I don't know what happened, but when you picked the computer up and moved it closer, for some reason you're getting a little choppy now. I don't know if it's further away from your router or something, but your signal's breaking up.
Is that better?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
It might be my stomach bouncing up and down.
Maybe, I don't know. Okay, so can you talk about the difference in, because I feel like, and I could be wrong, you were there, but I feel like part of the reason that go-go wasn't able to take off in the way that hip hop was is the economics of the touring. Like, obviously, it's going to be way cheaper to tour Salt and Pepper with 3 girls than it is to tour George Clinton with a staff of whatever, 20, 30 people or whatever. Am I right in that, or was that not a factor?
I think you need to dig a little deeper than that.
Okay.
Number one, none of the local groups had any real strong national record label relationships.
Right.
They might have been exploited by them,
Mm-hmm.
but never did any runs like they do today or maybe 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Where they invest in tour promotion, tour production, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And the economics of that, those big companies who were supporting those big groups, Motown was supporting Commodores because Commodores for several years were basically staffed employees and opening act for the Jacksons. They didn't even put out a record until like 2 years after they had been on the label.
Right.
So there wasn't those kind of relationships. And then from a go-go, from a rap standpoint, those guys could only make money on the road because they were only doing singles, maybe 2 singles, and that was heaven to them until Run DMC and like 86 and some of those other groups started putting albums together. It wasn't happening. So now here's a group that who can turn a party out with a play of a LL Cool J record or a Kumo D record. They're not gonna get played down the highway. Mm-hmm. Nobody who knows who they are. They're doing, you know what time it is down in Atlanta. Mm-hmm. That's Kumo D. And they don't have nothing that could connect to them to the audience. And they didn't have national records. I think Chuck had a national record with Bustin' Loose.
Yep.
Max Kidd, God bless his soul, worked the hell out of that record.
Yep.
Spike Lee's movie gave Sugar Bear and Experience Unlimited a run. But you know, even Black Heat had one called Never No Time to Burn. Right. That's what got us down through those colleges during that time period. And if you go to the track record where local bands have normally gone, they've gone generally through college towns where college kids know the music and that sort of thing. And they were entertaining. But we didn't come in there with massive productions like Luther Vandross with clothes and all kinds of bells and whistles. We weren't wearing leather skinny pants like Rick James or none of that. They weren't that kind of a band. Right. So nobody paid attention to them outside of that immediate college corridor from maybe Pennsylvania down to Georgia.
So you mentioned that they didn't have the relationships with the record labels, and I mean, from what I'm hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong, is there weren't enough records, there weren't enough songs, there weren't enough hit records made in go-go to be able to develop those relationships. I'm sorry,
they weren't back-to-back singles that would have manifested an artist to get that kind of record play constantly for 6 months.
Right.
You know, radio stations, depending upon how much money they're receiving, they can have you on for a long time or they can get rid of you. You know, give me hits and keep you moving. Because record labels were putting funds in radio stations. Yeah. These guys, they weren't spending no money with radio stations like that. They might have you might get something in one of them second or tertiary markets and make some action happen, but you weren't getting that kind of action in New York City, you know, Philadelphia.
Right. Well, so I guess what I'm trying to dig into is really what were the if people really say, because I talked to, you know, like Charles Stevenson, I talked to Bo Sampson yesterday, and what I'm trying to understand, obviously because I'm a little younger and I wasn't there at that time, is there seemed to be a desire from these bands like Chuck Brown, like EU, like these bands, at least by this point, to do something bigger than just play locally. But it seems like there was a disconnect, and just what you mentioned, like obviously there weren't enough songs. There weren't enough songs to develop the relationships with the labels, with no relationships with labels, there was nobody to put any resources towards getting radio play. And I guess what I'm trying to get to is, why is it so hard for go-go bands to create songs? Because that seems to
Talk
be
to them about that. I'll
right.
say the following: Chuck did gospel, did R&B, he did jazz, he did go-go.
Yeah.
I went to Japan and Holland with Chuck. Chuck was a king there. All the big heavyweights, Miles Davis, Dizzy Gillespie, they knew who Chuck was. People in Japan danced to his music. He had been going there on and off for years.
Yep.
So they're only local because of their own exposure. If they didn't have somebody doing stuff or did other things to diverse their product or their imaging, that's on them.
Right.
They didn't have, I mean, back in the day, they didn't have internet when Chuck was going to Europe.
Right.
They didn't, but people heard of him.
Right.
He had product that someone in another country said, I like this blues record, or I like this R&B record, or I like, this jazz record.
So you think that the most of Chuck's interest from overseas, internationally, came not from the go-go stuff necessarily, but from more the blues and jazz stuff.
Recognition of him being a very great musician.
Gotcha.
His musicianship was stellar.
Right.
Ask him about it.
Right.
He worked hard.
Yeah.
This stuff is so pristine. If you didn't think it was if you played George Benson, you'd think George Benson was in the room.
Right.
You would think he was there.
Right. Gotcha. So okay, all right. So we are now at you're touring, and you've got the hip hop artists opening up, and we moved on to Salt and Pepper. So you're managing Salt and Pepper. You're helping Herbie Love Boat get his stuff together, and then what happens after that?
We end up getting through the efforts of my partner Carol and myself collaborating. We end up getting one of the biggest deals for a for a rap act, a female rap act ever. They got over like $15-16 million.
Wow.
And everybody was blown away. And then when it came time for the money, the girls themselves couldn't even see each other straight in the eye. They got crazy, so we shut down our office and came back home because they weren't going to be right. You think money won't change? Yes, it will. And the whole squad broke down. You know what I mean? And I started doing Def Comedy Jam shows and doing other shows in DC. And then a lawyer brought Maya to our office. I knew her when she was a kid because I used to do business with her father. And we started managing Maya and basically help her launch her career with a deal with Hawk Islam and Interscope Records. Then I got a call from an accountant, Bert Bedell, and said, "Hey man, these guys, the Three More Tenors, that had just done this great special on PBS. Maybe you and Carol Darryll can help promote them." And we got involved with their management for a minute. That cost us a lot of money. And then
so what lessons to be learned from that?
They didn't own their production, and we were misled in reference to what they were responsible and what they had developed. And the company took us to court. The production company that was involved with them took us to court in New York. Don't ever go to court in New York. And we got a country ass whipping because they had us in federal court for infringement, and they had us in regular court for for copyright and some other stuff. So we were in two levels. They wore us out, and the lady's husband was a lawyer, and they gave us the rope a dope. So we finally got out of that, and then we went back into doing our shows.
Well, so let's rewind a little bit and talk about Go Go Live. How did that come about? And
everybody always asks about Go Go Live. Go
show. You knew I was going to ask about Go Go Live. Come on, there.
But it still stands from '87. It still stands strong today.
Yep.
I just come off tour, and there was this movie called Good to Go that was happening in DC.
Yep.
A lot of my friends, guys in the band, I wanted to see what was going on. I want to keep up with what's happening in the city. And when I got there, I ran into Chuck, and Chuck was grumbling. I said, "What's wrong, man?" He told me, "Man, this is whack." Blah 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 blah. Talked to Sugar Bear, and then Juju came in. This shit sucks. There, they got us hanging out with a bunch of junkies and making our shit look whack. This ain't who we are. We like good music. We're not in that world. We're not in that shooting gun world. We're trying to get away from that.
Right.
So I made a statement to him like, "Hey, let's have a meeting. Come and meet me in my office on Tuesday. We'll sit down, because bunk this. We can do our own move. We can do our own video. Believe me, we can pull that off.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody said yeah, and they came to the office. And between Miss Mack, Annie Mack, who had Ray Essence and Chuck, and Lil Bennington, a representative, he came in the room, and we mapped out this show, and we said, okay, we're all partners. Everybody got it. You heavyweights, this is what you got to do to make this happen. You got to contribute this. You got to contribute. You got to contribute. We'll contribute that. And all of us will put this together. Then we'll get a record cut. We'll get a movie cut, and then we'll sell it. And all of us will reap the benefits of that. And we'll produce the concert, and we'll take the concert money to put in there to also make it happen. And everybody signed off.
And it seems like that would be something hard to pull off today, because as you and I know, it's very difficult dealing with the bands today. Do you think that the reason that was able to happen was because everybody was so disgusted with how Good to Go went?
Well, they were very upset with that. They trusted us because we were doing shows with them in the park. We were doing shows with them in the bigger venues. They knew what we said we could deliver it. They were down with us. And they would also have an opportunity to participate financially and also have a product in their hand at the end of the day. Let me sidetrack for a minute. I'm going to just give you a snippet that some of you probably don't know. So I got this call. I've been going to California for on and off, trying to get other shows to go in the Capitol Center. And I met the Jackson's manager. It was Ron Wisner and Freddie DeMann. I had meetings with them several times. So I said, man, we'd all like to do Jackson. Blah, 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 blah. So we get a call from an agent out in California named Howard Rose. Mm-hmm. He booked Elton John. He was that big on.
Yeah, he's a famous name in the booking agency world.
He gets on the phone and said, Darryll Brooks, you interested in doing a Jackson 5 show? Yeah. Well, you got to send me $25,000 by tomorrow. That's just a deposit.
By tomorrow?
I mean, something stupid like that. And I said, okay. Hung up the phone. And we looked at each other and said, oh, shit, we're going to get $25,000 because we ain't had no money.
All right.
We made a call.
What year was this?
I'm not sure. I could look it up, but I'm not sure. It was in probably the late 80s, maybe, early 80s, maybe, somewhere in there.
Okay.
Late 70s, somewhere in there. Somewhere, I think late 80s.
Gotcha.
And we talked to Ted Hopkins, and then Ted called Annie Mac, and we just made calls to people we knew, bands we dealt with. Somebody knocked on the door. About 2 hours later, Ted came in with a bunch of money, counted on the floor, trying to stack it up. Somebody else knocked on the door with a bag of money, stack it up. Somebody else knocked on the door, bag of money, stacking it up. Miss Mack and them came in there with 2 bags of money, stacking it up. It got to a point we said, don't bring no more money in here. I'm bringing that money. I don't know where the fuck y'all getting this money from, but we don't need no more money.
But that speaks to the level of reputation and the relationships that you had, that people were willing to come and bring you money.
Yeah, James Funk always said, man, tell the people I was partner on the Jackson 5 day. I said, he's telling you the truth. He was a partner on the Jackson 5 day and got paid.
That's awesome. Awesome. Real quick, I'm sorry, Darryll. If you're on Instagram, the feed's about to end in about 40 seconds. So make sure you head over to youtube.com/GOGOTIX so you can see the remainder of the interview here with Darryll Brooks. So make sure to head over to youtube.com/GOGOTIX. It's in the title, so you can head right over. So, okay.
About 3 or 4?
What's that?
How many people looking at us? About 3 or 4?
I think there's about 20 on YouTube and about maybe 5 or 6 on Instagram. But that's because you didn't post the flyer. You're the promoter extraordinaire. We sent you a flyer and you didn't even post it, so nobody knew you were going to be on here.
I don't do that with Channel 5 either.
Hey, man, it's me. It's me, though. So, okay. So because I remember when I told you that I moved to Long Beach, you told me about your famous NWA Long Beach story. So how did the NWA thing come about?
Got a call from a booking agent saying, Darryll, would you be interested in doing this rap show with this group? So I'd like you to take a meeting with me out in California. So Carol and I jumped on a plane and was in the Four Seasons Hotel. And Jerry Yade, who had Famous Artist Agency at the time, had introduced us to Jerry Heller, who was at Ruthless Records.
Yep.
And Eazy.
Yep.
And we sat down and had a meeting with them. And they told us what they wanted. We told them what we could do. We said that, okay, that one record y'all sing, Fuck the Police, you can't sing that because I'm not going to be able to get you through the South, through the Midwest, you singing that record.
Right.
So they said, put some insurance on it. If y'all sing that record, you'll be fined $25,000.
Oh, wow.
Take that money because it's going to be a headache for us.
Right.
We signed off on that. And we did a run, did a great run. And then the last date that we had them was in Detroit. I think it was August 6th, I think. And I was in the building, and I could hear anybody who's been in the show business, you know certain sounds of how the show is running if you've been in the game. And I'm listening to the show, and I said, wait a minute, what just happened? And I heard the audience start chanting, "Fuck the police." I said, oh shit. I started running to the backstage because I know what happens when groups hear somebody give them a command, say, come on, do this.
Yep.
I also knew it was the last day on their run with us. Malachi, Yella hit that beat and dropped that needle on that record. All hell broke loose. The police started chasing us, running after the stage because they had a bunch of plainclothes police officers there because they were using the Joe Louis Arena as the meeting place because they had another thing outside on the plaza in Detroit. So we had their depot there, for lack of a better term. Those guys are rushing the stage. LL and the other groups are trying to get on stage. I think De La Soul, a lot of people there. And when they ran backstage, over the stage, Eazy and them went out the door. Only NWA was on stage. Eazy hadn't even gone on stage yet because they would play in two parts. They would do the NWA set, then they would do the Eazy set.
Okay.
All of them ran out the door. By the time the police got backstage, only thing they saw was guys, rappers. And they ran in the LL Cool J's room with a whole bunch of niggas from Queens. And they started knuckling up right the door, like, boom, 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 boom. Guys, rollers in the back. They started grabbing rollers and putting handcuffs on them, telling them, sit down, had them on their knees. And some guys were big and burly. They weren't letting nobody do it. They don't know who you are, especially in plain clothes.
Right,
so
right.
Went bananas. The police officer, the uniform guy, I'm looking at him like, what the hell is going on, man? Y'all need to stop this. I got 18,000, 19,000 people. The show got to keep going. And I just started screaming at the top of my lungs, what the fuck? Stop fucking with this. I want my crew get on stage, put the next act up, da-da-da. Fuck these crazy motherfuckers. I don't care about them. We need to keep our show running because we don't want them people out front to start breaking back.
Yeah, that's an even bigger problem. Yeah.
Oh, no. So Malachi, I was screaming louder than the bull. I was screaming my ass off. And everything stopped. They realized that Eazy and them had already left the building.
Weren't even there, right?
They wanted us to tell them what were their names. I don't know their name. Eazy. I don't know what his name is. They were going to lock Carol up. They were going to lock me up. I tried to get Jerry Heller on the phone. I said, Jerry, I need the names of the guys because the police had somebody click. He hung up on me. Okay. Thank you for your help. So, make a long story short, I think they got fined maybe $100. Something like a disorder, something stupid like that. Nothing,
wow.
You know what I mean? It just went away. The show went on. I tell you what, Ed Lover and Dr. Dre, the DJs who was in New York at the time, I'd grab them and say, man, go on stage and MC until the next act come up. So in Ed Lover's and Dr. Dre's book, they said the first time they realized that they were stars is when Darryl Brooks made me go on stage at the NWA concert. Because we went on stage and told people who we were, they got applause. because we had a dead stage. And these two guys got up there who were at least familiar because of their days at Yo MTV Raps. They knew that people knew them. They never had that opportunity to be in front of that audience before. So it was kind of funny to me. They said, "Darryll, we put you in our book." I said, "Thank you very much. I guess my great grandkids will find me one day in a book."
Well, Gino Meyer is on a keyboard player. He plays with EU and some other people too. And he said that scene is actually in the Straight Outta Compton movie too. Yeah.
That's true. The thing that's funny about that, they had to call my office. What happened at the show? Because Jerry shut down his booking agency. Jerry Heller had stopped the management company, and we're the only ones that had the records. So I had to give them the dates and the chronological what was happening. And then I ended up emailing them some flyers. I had pictures of the flyers and posters from that time period.
Oh, really? So tell that story only because I live in Long Beach now, so I want to hear.
What happened there was that we just finished playing L.A., and we had the gang squad traveling with us, and we had a gang squad in L.A., and they basically helped the event security in the building and the police to recognize, different gangs, make sure they weren't coming in the building with their colors on and all that kind of yada yada.
Right.
So when we get to Long Beach, we had our guys at the doors. Now, I was the first one to put metal detectors at the door. And I bought them in D.C., put them in the road case, and we carried them everywhere. So we had metal detectors, so we were carrying our own stuff at the time, which was unheard of. And we had our security at the door. So the building manager said, "We don't need your people here." I said, no. We can identify, because these guys are professional. They know what they're doing.
Right.
So they came to me and said, "Darryll, they got a whole bunch of bloods coming in. They got a whole bunch of this coming in." I told the building manager, "Hey, man, you need to let my crew identify and don't let these guys coming in with that stuff on." He blew us off. I said, okay. So that particular day, I had on a red and black jogging suit from Adidas. And the guy said, "Darryll, you need to take that off." I went back on my bus and I put on this white Adidas shoe with white straps. So I said, "Okay, I'm gonna be that fly dude. I'm gonna come up here all white." And I said, "I'm gonna MC this show." So I get on stage and I'm seeing people come into the building, and I think the first act was Somebody Short, and the next act up was Houdini. So I'm gonna bring on Houdini. So I'm looking down on the floor, and I'm seeing a whole section of people sitting there, but then I see a column of guys come down the aisle, and when they come down the aisle, everybody who was sitting there got up and left. I said, "That's strange. I wonder what that's about." But I looked at him, was mumbling to myself on the mic. I said, "What is that about?" So I said, "Well, ladies and gentlemen," and I got ready to say, I said, "What are y'all doing?" The guy said, "You better start this motherfucking show." I said, "House lights." So Houdini got halfway through their music, and all of a sudden they started fighting. So when they brought up the lights to half, we looked up. I came back on stage because I'm trying to figure out what's going on. Maybe a fight broke out. There were a group of guys in the front. There were a group of guys in the back doing where the curve is, and there were a group of guys off to my right. But they started doing all this finger jive.
Right.
I didn't know what that was at the time.
Right.
And whoever was in the middle was the target. And these guys started throwing we call it fire extinguishers, like footballs. Guys were hitting guys, knocking them out, knocking them down the steps, and the rumble was on. So what we did, the acts went back in the dressing room. The stage crew had microphone stands. Anybody who ran towards the stage, no, you stay down there. No, you stay down there. And they started rumbling. The regular audience went for the exits in the back of the building, out the front of the door. So the house, you ever see those cartoons where somebody takes a vacuum and everything gets sucked out?
Yeah.
People just got sucked out the building. They just disappeared. And there were people who were, hurt, got, beat up and hit. Nobody got shot or anything like that. And the building dumped within 20 minutes. I mean, like totally clear. So the police came and, maybe about 15 minutes later, like, by the time y'all got here, but, they're gone. And we went outside and people were far, far away. So we made a decision there. Like, I think we got run on the radio during the media because there was a lot of media attention. Said we'll never come back to California again until they get this gang stuff together. and we went back to the East Coast. But
Right.
the thing that still gets to me today, there was nobody reported, shot, killed, cut, anything like that. But I saw a lot of people get punched in the face. I mean, like really got their ass whipped. Then we went back to San Diego one year, and it had the same kind of thing. But this was funnier. It was a Public Enemy show. We had Public Enemies tour out. And that's when Kid and Play and Digital Underground was on the show. And Humpty Hump was real big. And the building manager just asked me, Brooks, can you have the group play after a little bit after 12? I said, why is that? Because we want to make sure the police are here when the show is over. Because they saw all these red shirts come in the building, red jackets come in the building. So the hook was, I saw them too. And the T-shirt security, when all the guys in red jackets come in, the T-shirt security walked out the building. So I'm outside by my bus trying to get my flashlight that looked like a blackjack. Mm-hmm. I'm going back in. I'm at least have something to keep somebody off me.
Right.
And I said, wait, why is security outside? I realized that they were afraid of all these guys in the building. So I said, okay, I get what the police are doing. So I go to Chuck D. I said, Chuck, you can play an extra song because I need you to play until I tell you to stop. He said, okay. So they go back on stage. They played to around 6, 7 after 12. When the house lights went up, all these blood guys, they split up and went out of different doors and took off. The police had surrounded the parking lot, but you had all these little guys sprinting everywhere. And it looked like somebody let mice out and everybody just scampering all over the place. So I go outside, I'm laughing like, y'all got to be kidding me. There were police cars running this way, police cars running that way, police cars running this way, police cars running that way. And I just said, okay, that's California. Let me go back east where it's more safe. That was my long story. Story.
I know the answer to this, but for people that are watching, and you sort of already alluded to it earlier, but I want to drive the point home. Why did you not take go-go bands on any of these tours?
Because it wouldn't have meant anything to the audience and they wouldn't sell me tickets. If they'd have had something that was relevant to San Diego or Los Angeles or something like that, I'm not trying to break acts. You know what I mean? I'm trying to sell tickets. So I think acts that record companies are supporting with time buys, doing ticket giveaways, throwing out merch, T-shirts and all that kind of stuff. Doing tour support for these acts. What I'm gonna do is something that's doesn't have all those assets.
Right.
It's like luggage.
Yep.
You put a duffel bag on and you keep it moving.
Yeah. So I just want to make sure that that's clear to everybody, because I think that I don't know where it came from. I don't know what it is, but there seems to be an incredible sense of, for lack of a better term, entitlement in the go-go community about why isn't anybody putting us on, when in fact I think the problem is we're not doing enough to put ourselves on and to put ourselves in a position where we have any leverage in the situation and then thereby become, like you just said, just become luggage basically. Like if somebody was to put a go-go band on a tour right now, it's a favor. It's not because it's not going to do anything to benefit the tour necessarily, because nobody outside of DC even knows what the hell it is.
Unless you have some product that is hot in the market, either from DJ, club standpoint, or something, and at least have a repertoire. Because the average concert goer, when you think about an artist, if I'm going to see an artist, I want to see 1, 2, 3, 4 records I'm familiar with, that I like, that I've lived with, know the words, and sing along. Yep. If you got one record and all you're doing is saying, hey, where you in Southeast? I don't live in Southeast. You know what I mean? What's my birth sign? I did that when I was in elementary school, college.
Right.
They won't mean anything. So until they come up with something in love that Beyonce did, the guy took a go-go riff, and they presented a presentation. Dougie Fresh did it. Rex and Effects did it.
Mm-hmm.
Eddie Riley did it.
Yep.
All those groups who Salt and Pepper killed them. Kid and Play killed them.
Yep.
And they told a good story, and had you dancing to a beat that we created. And that's what I would tell them, like, why don't you just write? Like, if y'all ain't got nothing to write about, y'all gonna still be here. Y'all all right? You happy with doing what you're doing?
Mm-hmm.
But everybody who came in and saw the expertise you got, they've used you well, and you know they've used you well. Not yesterday, they've been using you for a while well, and you know this. They come in and you'll do a session with them, and you know, like Trouble Funk. Look how many people use Trouble Funk's music. But Trouble Funk had a big following out of the country. You know what I mean? Big Tony and them did a lot of other stuff. And when Chuck did a lot of other stuff. There's certain groups that did, you know, what Lil Benny went out the country one time. Because people who like the music would find them and bring them there. But as far as the consistency, you know, a college run or a cold circuit run, most promoters don't want something that's going to cost them a lot to perform. You deal with an average go-go band, you might have 10, 11 musicians. That's a lot of equipment. That's a lot of stage time, stage hand time. If you're not worth your weight to cover your costs as well as getting paid, you're luggage, man. I don't need to carry you.
Well, that's what I was getting at earlier with the, you know, with it being cheaper to tour the rappers, because there's not 10, 11 people. There's not a bunch of equipment.
Turntable on a six-page table. Now they got computers and digital stuff. Get out of here. They'll sample you and use you and say, look how many times they sang Sardines when you come to this. What band ain't sung Sardines?
Right. Right.
Anyway, it's past my dinner time, man. You got me out here for a long. I've been on an hour and 6.
We're about to wrap it up. I just have one more question, or two more questions. Sorry. So, one, why did you decide, or it just never came up again to do Go-Go Live again?
We're thinking about it right now.
What's that? Are you thinking about it right now?
Thinking about it right now. And also, I started a label called I Hear You Entertainment.
Yeah, I'll get to that too. Yeah.
Scoopy and Miss Kim. We Are One, a tribute band, which is a tribute to Frankie Beverly and Maze. I got EU, I got Sugar Bear, and I also have Junkyard Band. Yeah, and that's some of the stuff that we're starting out with.
So what's the goal? What's the goal of that record label? Is that
basically it's entertainment, something that it could add some commerce and pleasure in people's lives, because they're great entertainment groups. And if we have some music that could be played that can make us current and be able to travel one or two of these cities, it would be great. You know, like Spoon with We Are One Experience. He also is a drummer for Heatwave. And he has relationships across country. Sugar Bear got relationships. You know, Scooby's been playing with Buck Brown's band and a lot of other bands. He has relationships. Miss Kim had one of the hottest records, you know, remake records in DC in a while. And you know, JYB has been a staple for over 20 years.
Indeed. Absolutely. Absolutely. So real quick, just to you know, to be a little serious for 1 minute, so what do you think, just considering the times that we're in, because I had a friend, I mean, it's a very well documented, the sort of inequities within the record business with respect to how record companies treat artists of color. Have you noticed, because somebody was asking me about this with the live scene, and obviously I've been in it way less time than you have, and obviously I'm a white guy, so maybe I'm just not seeing it. To me, I see the live scene not in terms of the makeup of the executives in the business, because I think there's a lot of work to be done there. There are not, you know, anytime you look up a talent buyer for Live Nation, it's some young white girl. But I don't know that I've seen any kind of reluctance to book Black artists. It's just, I'm going to book whatever sells tickets. But I'm just curious if you have seen any of that. Like, if you've seen any, what inequities have you seen in the live business? And if so, what can we do to, you know, especially in these days and times, to sort of try to rectify that?
Malachi, I can go deep on you. I can go shallow.
Go deep if you got time. Go shallow if you don't.
I give you a history lesson.
Go ahead.
That's how I'm gonna quantify this. Back in the 60s, 70s, and early 80s, if a little white girl walked in the room with an Ohio Players album cover and say, "Daddy, I like this,"
Mm-hmm.
he would beat her ass and throw her out the house.
Yep.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We're in a digital age now; things have somewhat changed.
Mm-hmm.
But for whatever reason, from an economic standpoint, that Black folks do not have the venues consistently across country, and there are more white venues than Black venues everywhere. I mean, y'all got a rock and roll band, a garage band. Y'all will play for $200 and be happy, and we don't do that.
I'm sorry, Darryll. Let me stop you for a second. I'm sorry because you froze for a second. You said I heard you give the example of the white girl who would have gotten her ass beat, and then you froze up, and I didn't hear anything after that.
They said if she came home with an Ohio Players album,
yeah,
she would get her ass beat and thrown out the house.
Right.
I said if you go fast forward, there are not that many Black venues, clubs across the country.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all probably have maybe 100,000 clubs. And Black folks might have less than 1,000.
Right.
They can go and play consistently.
Mm-hmm.
We'll have small ensembles. You know what I mean? We do, but we don't. Mm-hmm. Not to the number. And think about it. You got maybe 70 million, 60 million Black people in America. You got 200 million white folks in America. Right. So if I'm out there, if I'm a white guy and I'm booking stuff, I'm booking for my clientele. Mm-hmm. I'll put some spice in there if it's something that makes sense on making me $1, but I'm not. That's not gonna be my interest. Mm-hmm. And for a white group to play in a Black club, same scenario. My audience is not exposed to that. We don't listen to the same radio. Right. We're not in the same college circuit. Right. So there's a lot of those variables. And what I hope to see in my lifetime is that music is music, number one. More venues where guys can develop their chops so they can have a great presentation and be worthy of somebody else wanting to see them. Because once you do a live presentation, if your shit is hot and good, people are going to say, you need to see this. You need to see it. And you'll constantly get that call. Mm-hmm. If you do that mediocre, guess what? You get lost in the song. You're like a matchbook. Oh, shit, I was at this hotel, and you throw the shit away. You don't care. You don't have the same affection for something unless something really impacts you. And good entertainment impacts you. That's what made Parliament so great back in the day. And I said that they're not great now, but people want to see the mother shit. People want to see Commodore. People want to see Earth, Wind & Fire disappear and the drums spin around and the piano spin around. They want to see that. They want to see Rick James smoke a big joint. They want to see Ice Cube with a big skeleton on stage. They had big production. Right. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. They just didn't want to see nobody hit a cowbell and some tambourines. Is that all you? Is that all you got?
Right. I hear you. Well, Darryll, listen, man, I really appreciate you spending the time, and thanks so much for hanging with me today. You gave a lot of great information, and this will be up, afterwards, so anybody that missed it can check it out. And I'm sure you and I. Yeah, absolutely. It's actually already in that email. You'll see there's one that says YouTube link to share. It's the same one. So it takes a couple of minutes after it goes live or after we wrap up to be up. But later this evening it'll be up, and definitely by tomorrow it'll be up.
Well, just send it to me because I don't know how to do it.
I got you. No problem at all. Well, look, man, I look forward to hearing what you got coming with the label, and anything I can do to help, I always will, and I appreciate all the help that you've given me over the years.
One Go-Go World Live. One Go-Go World Live.
Yep, I've been watching them. Yep, Dave and Scoop.
Putting that out. I'm involved with those guys. I'm really excited about that endeavor. And
yeah, it's great. The live stream so far have looked really awesome. I love it. It. Yeah. Great. All right. Thanks, Darryll. I appreciate it. Go get your dinner.
I'm trying to give you my thumbs up.
Yeah. We can see it. All right. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. All right. Have a good one. All right. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in to Gogotalx with me, Malachi Johns, brought to you by GOGOTIX. That was Darryll Brooks, legendary promoter and artist manager out of DC area. Go Live, Summer Spirit Festival, former manager of Salt and Pepper and Black Heat, as you heard. There just isn't anything that he hasn't done. And he's just a great guy. So we really appreciate him coming around. Just a couple things. If you can, again, like and subscribe down below. That really helps me out. Also, if you can join the email list at gogotix.co, that helps me as well. And this little scenario that I'm using here costs a little bit of money. So if you want to help support, go ahead over to gogotix.co/shop. And you can get your Gogo as Fuck t-shirt today to represent your city. And someone asked me about this shirt, which this is not a shirt that I make, but this is actually a shirt that that Black Alley makes. And so thank you, Bus12103. I appreciate you. You can get this shirt at, let me see. Let me make sure I get their website correct. I think it's blackalleyband.com. Yeah, so it's blackalleyband.com. And then if you just go to, I think the name of their, I'm sorry, I'm looking it up for you. I just want to make sure I give you the right information. Yeah, if you just go to store. Yeah, so if you go to blackalleyband.com/store, I'm going to put it in here right now because I want you to support them. That's my folks. So in order to get that shirt, you can go to blackalleyband.store. That's the shirt that I have on right now. If you want to get the Gogo as Fuck t-shirt, you can go to gogotix.co/shop. And oh, I guess that didn't post for some reason. So let me put it in here. Put it down here. Okay, so there we go. Yeah, now it's at blackalleyband.com/store. If you want this shirt, Essence and Junk and Bag and Groovers, they also got a bunch of other cool ones. Trap Rock and Go-Go one, which is another one that I have. And then if you want the Gogo as Fuck one, you can go right here to gogotix.co/shop. Next week we have on Wednesday 32. From my old band, Northeast Groovers. Also, he plays with Junkyard now. He also played with Rare Essence before as well. I think one of the only people that's played with the big three of the 90s crew. So make sure you tune in for that. And then, yeah, you got it, DJ Superfire TNT. I think I said that right. You guys kill me with the names. It's hard to get everybody. Yeah, it's hard to say it right. But yeah, so we got 32 next week, and then on Wednesday, and then on Thursday we have Ricky and Chief from the Hucklebucks, who I know that's a name you probably haven't heard in a while. So we're going to talk to them about what they got going on. Ricky is in Atlanta, and there is actually some go-go that goes on in Atlanta. So we're going to talk about that a little bit as well too. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. I appreciate the support. Every little bit helps. Thank you very much, and thank you guys for tuning in. And we'll see you next week. All right, have a great weekend.